Ritika madam?
Ji sir.
Yes.
Good afternoon, all of you.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Manish,
sir.
are you
It gives
starting?
me immense pleasure.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we can proceed, Manish. Thank you.
Yes, madam.
Shall I start, sir? Manish, sir? It gives me immense pleasure to introduce to you all respected Dr. Santosh Kumar Vishwakarma, sir. Sir is leading nanoscale devices, VLSI circuit and system design research group at Department of Electrical Engineering at IIT Indore since August 2010. He has received his doctoral degree from Department of Electronics and Communication Engineering, IIT Roorkee, India in 2010. He is mainly working towards the SRAM design and architecture, reliable, secure, and energy efficient circuits, digital ASIC SoC design, in-memory computing, and SoC FPGA-based CNN hardware accelerators. Sir has very strong collaborations with industry and academic partners across India and globe. He is the member of IEEE, ACM, Institute of Nanotechnology, VLSI Society of India, Indian Microelectronics Society, and Vigyan Bharati. Sir is the founder and faculty in charge of industry relations and placement. He has also under him Center of Innovation, Incubation, Entrepreneurship and Industry Relations. He is also founding head of Center of Futuristic Defense and Space Technologies, CFDST at IIT Indore. At present, he is Dean of Student Affairs at IIT Indore and Associate Professor in Electrical Engineering Department at IIT Indore. Welcome, sir. With this, I invite sir for his lecture.
Thank you, Ritika, and thank you, Manish, and thank you, GSITS Indore. So, shall I share my screen?
Yes,
Please?
sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Yeah. So, is my screen visible to everyone?
Yes, sir. It is visible, sir.
Thank you. So the topic which I'm going to cover today will be innovation in IoT devices, design and fabrication, and particularly I will speak about the Edge AI computing. So the contents of my presentation would be a brief introduction about the research group where I belongs to, then artificial intelligence chip market, then the embedded system hardware software co-design for the Edge AI applications. We will also speak about the design methodologies and its various platforms. Since we are talking about the fabrication and designing of the IoT devices, so particularly the Edge AI various blocks, we will also speak about. And so this will be the flow of the talk. So the screen which is available in front of all of you, it tells about all my research groups and acknowledgement I would like to give to for today's presentation to all my scholars and master students. So this is my web page, and those who are interested, they can have a look for any kind of collaboration or any kind of engagements or even any kind of mentorship or guidance. We will happy to have you on the board in together in our journey. So this is our research activity which we are driving nowadays. So nowadays we are more focused about the edge related IC design and computing. But in the past, we have dealt the non-conventional devices, particularly the FinFET and tunnel FETs and its device circuit co-design. And then later we have moved to the various IoT modules and its designing. And so this is all about. And then we have also dealt various embedded solution for various applications on using IoT boards and sometimes even FPGA boards. And nowadays we are more focusing on the FPGAs based solution for the Edge AI computings and cloud computings. So it's interesting to know what are the Edge AI hardwares and Edge AI chips, right? So Edge AI chips are particularly AI chips are nothing. It's just a specialized chip, right, which can minimize the risk of the life, right? But at the same time, when you are dealing with the AI chips or AI hardware, you have to deal with large number of data sets. So your hardware configuration of any AI chips should be slightly different because it used to interface with the images, videos, and so on and so forth, right? So hence the internal blocks of any AI chips or hardware should be little bit specific. Okay. Now coming to this AI edge markets. So AI edge markets across the globe, right? It's like growing in the very fast manner. So if you see this number of, I mean, this dollars in the right. So for example, North America and then Western Europe and so on. So even Asia Pacific. This where my laser is this Asia Pacific region. So from the very beginning, this Asia Pacific market is also growing like anything, just because of the population, of course, right? So this is all about the artificial intelligence chip and its market, and it says very clearly that the market is going to really huge by 2025. Okay, so this also motivates us to work in for the design and development of artificial intelligence chips. Now, if we broadly classify this global artificial intelligence chip market, right? So it is based on the chip type, which kind of chip we are studying. For example, whether you are trying to design and develop this ASICs. ASIC stands for the application specific integrated circuits. Then whether you are dealing the field programmable gate array, that is called FPGA, or you are dealing the CPUs or GPUs. So this class of AI chips is based on the type of chip, which kind of chip you are trying to design or study, right? Then we can also classify the AI chip market based on the application, whether you are dealing this natural language processing or robotics or computer vision and network security and so on and so forth, right? Then we have another class of AI chips which is based on the technology. So the entire market is divided into either system on chip or the system in package or multi-chip modules and so on and so forth, right? So this is the third class of the AI chips. Now the fourth class of AI chip is based on the processing type, which kind of processing you are engaging for your data. Either can be the audio, can be the video, can be the image. Either you are computing on the edge, where the sensor is supposed to sense the data and compute and finally take the decision, or you are dealing on the cloud. So this classification is based on the processing type. Now there are various industry verticals, for example, the media and advertising, IT and telecom, retail, healthcare, automotive, transports, and so on and so forth. So you will find in subsequent slide that there are huge industry verticals. They are focusing on nowadays artificial intelligence chip. And if you broadly try to see the global markets, so across the world, I mean, this market is trying to achieve the huge market revenue in the coming years. So since today's we will more focusing about the first class, that is the based on chip type. So which kind of chip you are thinking of and you should think of. So if you see the market survey of the global artificial intelligence market, so the orange one is 2018 and the blue color one is by 2025. So if you try to see the first category of the chip type called the GPU, so graphical processing unit is having much bigger than the 2018. Then if you try to have a look on this forecast by the industry partners of the ASIC, application specific integrated circuits, then you will find that this market is really shooting like anything. Then if you see the FPGA market, this is also comparatively by 18, this market is much smaller than the ASICs, but among all four, FPGA market is relatively much better. If you try to see CPUs, then of course, as compared to 2018, this is much smaller than the ASICs and FPGA, but comparatively as good as like GPU and CPUs and others. So what we understood with this slide, we understood that by 2025, the ASIC markets are going to be a big market as far as the artificial intelligence chip market is concerned. Okay, so as a research community, as a startups or as a R&D or academicians, we should learn at least FPGA and ASICs, how AI chips are going to be embedded either on the FPGA or on the ASICs. So these two avenues where we should more focus upon. This is all about the global AI chips and market. So this is about the Asia Pacific region. If you see this, India, China, Indonesia, Japan, and so on and so forth. So this is also a big market. However, Europe, of course, is of course a big market. right? North America and Lamina and so on and so forth. So this is just to ignite you people, I mean, just together, that how this industry is growing across the globe. And this particular slide is because of, if you try to see what are the verticals, industry verticals, or what are the areas, what are the application domains where we should think of, where we can have the foundation of the AI chips. So for example, the autonomous vehicle based on the computer vision, then intelligent robots based on the speech recognitions, then based on the smart healthcare, based on the cinematic analysis, then based on the smart homes, right? Knowledge graphs are the main machine interaction with the smart cities. Here, main machines are going to interact with the smart cities, finance, right? The fintech, then intelligence securities, then intelligent hardwares, self-service stores, and intelligence education. Okay, so if you try to see the entire verticals, right, almost everywhere you will find these AI chips are going to play the major role. Even now, toys industries, right? Even toys industries, very sophisticated toys are coming into the market where these intelligent chips are going to be placed rather than discrete components. Because discrete components, they don't have the AI features, right? So somehow one has to go either the ASICs or the FPG. But FPG are bigger in size, right, as compared to ASICs. ASICs are the tiny chips, very small tiny chips, right, where large number of features you can embed and you can compute. So if you go more in detail about the various overview of AI chips and associated technology. So the application, if you go to the what are the application, for example, either you are dealing the video or image, either you are dealing with the sound or speech, you are doing the natural language processing, or you are dealing with the controlling other things. So these are the domains, but not limited to these only. So primarily they falls under application. If you try to deal with the algorithmic level, then there you will find various scopes. If you try to see the AI chips market and technology on the chip level, then you will find the chip performance optimization, neuromorphic computing, programmable chips, the system on chip architecture development tool chain. If you try to have a look on the device level, I mean, one of the block of the chip, for example, the high bandwidth of chip memories, right, DRAMs and high speed GDRAM, low power DDRAM, SSD RAM, and so on and so forth. Then you can also have, because your data is supposed to process very high speed. So high speed interfaces, for example, the SerDes, optical communication, silicon optical communication, these things will come into the AI chips, right? So this is how one can see that these are the various scopes or the technologies which will involve at the device level. While dealing with the CMOS technology level, you will also find the huge of scopes to deal with. So what I'm trying to explain is that either application to the algorithm, to the chip, to the design, and to the CMOS technology, this is the complete flow, right, of a AI chips design technology, where at every level of abstraction, you have to think very seriously that how it's going to move. Okay. Now, as I said in the beginning that since we will try to learn how one can design the particular chip, particularly the computing blocks, either on the cloud, either on the edge. So if you try to see what are the available things available in the when you are dealing with the artificial intelligence, we have to provide either trainings of the models, right, and then inference, right? So for that, either you have to go with the data centers or the cloud or on the edge of the embedded solution. So this is the very dark area where this is the new area called the edge AI computing, right? Where the sensor will sense the data, compute at the same itself, right, and take the decision where the specific strategic applications are supposed to be dealt with. Now, but it will take more interest if you try to understand what are the available cloud AI computing markets. So if you think about NVIDIA is now leader, right, in this area. However, the Intel and all big companies, they're also trying to come very fast, because NVIDIA, if you see the history of NVIDIA, NVIDIA was the one who used to make the GPUs in the CPU, right? So they had this graphical processing unit, right, but with very limited features. But they have grown like anything, and they have embedded these AI features on their own GPU, and as a result, many tensor cores are available in their GPUs. So this the first name called the NVIDIA's Tesla version 100. was the first AI cloud computing platforms where they have the 1 trillion operation, floating point operation per second, and it used to compute, of course, with the processing power, right? Then the Google, they have also launched a few years before the tensor processing, we call it TPU version 1, TPU version 2, with various embedded features of the available high bandwidth memories, and the speed is also very high, and so on and so forth. So Google, they have also jumped very drastically in this market with the various embedded features of the available inside circuit blocks. Now this Intel, they have also jumped and they have hired this Nirvana neural processing units, right, with the HBM2, and they have done great work last couple of years, and now they have their own FPGA also. Now with Xilinx and Intel, they have also increased their higher storage bandwidth and so on and so forth, and hence they have the various available hardware markets, right? For example, this Vertex UltraScale UP9P FPGA. So they have a dedicated Xilinx has a very dedicated FPGA boards having 16 nanometer TSMC and FPGA. So these are the inbuilt features of these FPGA boards. So now these FPGA boards are not really very bulky, or you can see the form factor is also very small. So these FPGA, which are designed and developed by the Intel and many other NVIDIA and other people, so they are trying to embed more features with more capabilities, but with a very small form factor with low power consumption. Why? Because we want to deploy these chips at the various sites, can be the IoT sites where the sensors are supposed to be there. You have to compute, you have to take the decision, everything on the sensor node itself, right? So even now this Intel, they have recently launched a kind of pen drive concept, right? It's very small, tiny chips. You just plug and play in your laptop with the CPUs, and then you can perform any kind of computing activities for your specific AI applications. So as I said in the very beginning that we will talk more about edge AI computings. So the important parameters of any computing can be the latency, can be the bandwidth, and can be the privacy, and the power and cost. Okay, particularly. So the power and cost used to be the constraints for the edge AI application. So what exactly we are trying to understand with the latency is, we will learn in the coming slides. But in this slide, you try to understand that these are the few important parameters when you are dealing with edge AI computing. And if you just have a look on this slide, okay, you will realize that the cloud computing, what exactly we are doing in the cloud computing. Consider example of smart city. So what will happen? The sensors which are deployed is, for example, in buses, for example, BRTS Indore. Okay, so for example, all the sensors which are deployed on the buses, they will sense the information, either can be any signal, video, audio, whatever it is there. They will sense and they will send to through various network, right, through the various clouds which are remotely available. There they used to compute, analyze all the data which are sensed by the sensors, and which are necessary data can be sent back to the user, right? So this is the process where it will take some time, maybe the fraction of minutes, fraction of seconds, but this is called the latency. So in the edge, what we used to do, we have a specialized chip close to the user. If you see, the man is standing, and then we have a smartwatch, but in the smartwatch we have to have a smart devices, where the sensor will be there on the watch itself or on the man itself, which used to compute. No need to send the data and receive the data from the cloud. So this latency time people have realized. So reduce. Okay, why we are doing? Because there are various strategic application where data and decision used to be at very instantaneously. Okay, so this is how we can think of to develop and design a specialized chip dedicated for the edge AI computing. Okay, here if you try to understand this cloud server, if you see the cloud server, so what will happen? That the learning used to be happen, right, on the server, then training and the data sets and inference, and then finally you load to the user. So this will take some time, right? So actionable insight and probably the data processing will be more. Okay. However, at the edge, right, whatever sensors are there, they will just sense the data and then compute itself and take the decision itself. So very strategic application, for example, autonomous vehicle, right, even drones, even many robots, many things are there where time is very, very important. Maybe the fraction of seconds will do whatever we don't expect. So that is what the importance of the edge AI computing is in this strategic application, where decision has to be there very timely. Now, as of now, what we have learned, we have learned how what are the blocks, what are the important blocks used to be happening, right? So if you try to understand this embedded system hardware architecture of any either the cloud or the edge, so it should like that. This is the RF module blocks, okay, with the low noise amplifier, power amplifier, and ADC, mixer, synthesizer, baseband, MAC unit used to be there, right? Through these AHP buses, and of course we have the integrated power supply management unit called the PMU, and this PMU used to give the power supply to various blocks and through the AHP buses. So this high-end buses used to give the data to this RISC-V processor, where we can compute and do everything. And then finally, these are the sensors block through this GPIO, UART, and I2C protocols. You can compute all this information, and these available sensors, you can give the input to these data converters and protocols, communication protocols, I2C and SPI protocols and UART protocols through this interface blocks, and then it used to go to the RISC-V processor. So RISC-V processor is the on-chip hardware ports, right? And then you can also have a training and finding the trained weight on the off-chip. So what I'm saying off-chip means, for example, if you try to understand the linear architecture, okay, so it's learning and trying to calculate the weight of the particular neural networks, right? You can do everything on the separate hardware blocks, or you can say on your simple CPU or GPU machine. But if you can feed all those trained weight through these AHP buses, and then you can move to the digital interface for local memory and controller, and then in the in-memory computing blocks, right, along with security blocks and reliability blocks, you can do the edge accelerators, right? So this is how we have to understand that in edge accelerators or edge AI computings, right, the computing used to be happen in the memory itself. Why? Because in one human architecture earlier, right, the memory units and processing units both are different. So what happens that if the data travel from the computing unit or processing unit to the storage unit, right, it used to take some time. So to minimize even that latency, right, which was happening in the one human architecture, people thought, let us compute and process and store and retrieve the data on the same block, which is called in-memory computing. So in the memory only, right, you have to do computing, processing, storing, or retrieving the data on the same time. All right. As of now, it's clear to everyone? Hello? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, you are audible.
All right. So yeah, since I'm not able to see any faces, so it is difficult for me who is there in the background of this screen. So as of now, I have tried my level best to share the importance of this area and what are the hardwares available. And now we will learn in software side, little bit software side, that is the ML algorithms are needed to deal with the deep neural networks, either CNN or CNN, RNN, or even ANN, right? And then how one can reach. So in the subsequent slide, we will try to understand what are the design platforms as far as the hardwares are concerned. Okay? So I'm sure that before me, speakers must have talked about how the data and object used to be detect and classify, right? And this is how we are dealing with the images and the sensors, those who are available either on any of the object that will sense and compute. But in nutshell, at most everywhere we need the hardware, right? Where we have to interface with the either images, right, or either with the audios or the text and so on and so forth. Using some convolutional layer, right, how many layers and what are the things, these things we have to decide on the algorithms level, so that you can achieve the right image which you were supposed to be. For example, this is the image of the cat, right? So whether you are getting the image either dog or cat and so on and so forth, these things will require various filtration techniques, right? So various pooling techniques we have to apply, and how many and so on and so forth. And based on that, if you try to compare and classify the data, then you can use the application. You can receive the actual image of. And for doing all those things, your hardware should be sufficient enough. This is called the DNN accelerators. So your hardware chip should be sufficient enough that they should be able to handle such a large number of data sets of the images or the video or the audio or the text images, right? And hence it is very interesting to know how to design the fundamental blocks of the any network. So this is the block representation of the fully connected artificial neural networks, or you can say neuron internal architectures. So for example, this is the input layer, these are the hidden layers, and then we have the output layer. Depending upon the number of hidden layers and number of neurons, you can extract the weights, and depending upon the input lines with the respective synaptic lines, right? If you are supposed to calculate and compute, so we have to have the multiplication, x1 into w1 plus x2 into w2 and so on and so forth. And then finally this bias. So this is the bias value. And then if you have the nonlinear activation function, and then only you can fire and then you can find out the output. So what I'm trying to explain is that in the hardware also, whatever chips we will try to think to design, we have to have a specialized multiplier, right? And the trained weight and bias calculation. And the bias calculation, the trained weight comes from the algorithm labor, which you can do on your single element machine. So if you try to see the various neurons architecture, we have to have the various activation functions. For example, the sigmoid, tanh hyperbolic, ReLU, Swiss. There are multiple activation functions, and they are supposed to be, so the activation functions, they're also supposed to be designed and developed at the either VSD level or Verilog level, okay? And its efficiency. So in general, what should be our approach? Our approach should be that we have to design an efficient hardware architecture, right? Where the multiplication can be done, where the addition can be done, and so on and so forth, right? So all those things we can do, right? And for all those stuff, our approach should be your hardware, right? Demands this if you try to compute the fully connected network, it demands the high logic resource utilization. I mean, whatever logics are available, right, their utilization should be very high. For example, if you are dealing with MNST data sets where the 10,000 hand digit recognition are there, samples are there. For example, 1 to 9, 10,000 samples, right? So you are supposed to deal 10,000 image samples of the hand digit, right? So your hardware, right, if you're trying to see and design and develop these algorithms on a small platform of FPGA. So what we'll do, so your algorithm should be in such a way that with the limited resources, right, whatever hardwares are there, for example, the multiplexer, for example, the configurable logic blocks and so on. So whatever logic blocks are there inside the small FPGA, their utilization should be as much as high. So at algorithms level, we have to change the philosophy of implementing the neurons, okay, so that it can utilize your resources in a very high manner, right? And each neurons having activation function, right, with same property for all. So if you try to use this feature, probably you will require less resources because each activation function is supposed to apply for all the neurons. The MAC unit, that is also, this is one of the hungry block. So the multiplication accumulation units, okay? So MAC units, so multiplier, because here we are multiplying and then adding, okay? So the multiply units and multiplier which needs a hungry block. So your MAC unit can also be designed and developed at the algorithms level, at the device level, so that few MAC units will be sufficient enough to deal with such a huge neurons. So what will happen is that by that way, you will need a less resources, okay? And a bigger neuron networks can be implemented on a small, tiny FPGA chips, which is not very costly. Otherwise, if you are supposed to implement a bigger neural networks, right, then you need a very high-end FPGA, which is 5 lakh, 6 lakh rupees, right? So how our approach should be that how a difficult neural networks can be implemented on 10,000, 20,000 rupees board, FPGA board, right? So, and of course, the IoT area application demands the tight budget of the area and power. Because I just said in the very beginning that if you are supposed to design and develop any IoT based this AI computing platform, so since the systems are located at different locations, right? So the form factor, the area of the chip or the embedded solution should be as small as possible. And they should also compute less power or consume less power. So your architecture should be power efficient architecture. So how you are going to make power efficient architectures, right? At the same time, area efficient architecture. That should be the plan for designing the IoT devices and its fabrication on the chips. So as of now, we have seen that in IoT, edge AI computing or the cloud computing, what should be the parameters? In around those parameters, we have to think upon the design and development of the hardwares. Okay. Now, let us try to understand what are the platforms on which you can think of to implement. Okay. So commonly people talk about the GPUs. So GPUs are the most widely used hardware accelerators, okay, for improving both training and classification processes in CNNs. This is why, because they have a high bandwidth memory and throughput, as they have highly efficient floating point matrix-based operation. However, the only problem with the GPU is they consume large amount of power. So therefore, the places where we can think of the battery operated devices become a challenge. For example, IoTs, right? There you cannot feed the power continuously, because sometimes you have to have your IoT devices at different locations where your battery is the only source for the energy. So there, because of the power hungry aspect of the GPU, as well as the area, because the GPU is sometimes bulky also. So for IoT applications, these GPU are the not best suitable candidate for moving towards the FPGA and ASIC market, right? So FPGA both are like with the limited memories, IO bands, and computing resources as compared to GPU. So both options can be the one option, right? Why? Because they have at least moderate performance and with power consumption. So FPGA boards, they're also consuming less power, but ASIC consume very less power. So ASIC can be the advantage, but let us try to understand what are the advantages and what are the disadvantages of ASICs and FPGA. Okay. So of course, if you try to increase the throughput of the ASICs, then you have to customize the memories, okay, with dedicated resources, right? And then ASIC-based solutions and ASIC-based accelerators for the deep neural networks can be a best candidate, but it will take longer design cycle. Means that to design and develop the ASIC, probably it will take years, maybe years or 2 years, right? Something like that for the complete tape out and finally testing into the chip. But the beauty with the FPGA is you can just test at least the concept and as many as times, right? So if there is a chance of the failure, you can cope up with, right? So even though FPGA is slightly bulky, but you can just compromise with, right? Because of the price, reasonable price with low power consumption and reconfigurability. So when I'm said that as many as times you can just code and then you can compute those, that is what FPGA market and FPGA research are the most favorable markets nowadays in the research community, right? Once you are okay and once you have satisfied with your problem statements, your achievements, the goal and everything, then you can convert that FPGA into the ASICs. So easily you can convert your ASICs into the FPGA into the ASICs with certain design tools. So as of now, we have learned that what are the various platforms for the implementing, designing and developing the neural networks. So the GPU we have seen, FPGA we have seen, and ASICs we have seen, right? But FPGA is the most preferable choice for the beginner prospect. Okay. So these are the, once again, the FPGA and drawback and so on and so forth. But ideal condition used to be that we can start the journey of this hardware implementation, accelerated implementation of any neural network using FPGA. Okay, and these are the various flexibility and efficiency features of the ASICs and FPGA. ASICs are having more efficient but less flexible in nature. FPGA are more flexible in nature, means you can do your programming and everything at various levels, right? And even you can do at the hardware level coding, no problem. But at the CPUs and GPU, you can't do. So you can do the algorithm level things and so on and so forth. In that sense, they are more flexible in nature, but they are not efficient. So if you try to see the efficiency of the hardware, you have to have moved from FPGA to ASICs. Okay, so as of now, we have understand and we have learned that how flexibility and efficiency can be integrated in CPU to the ASICs. Manish is fine to everyone as of now?
Yes, sir. It's fine.
Okay, how long I can speak?
So you can go to 145.
Okay, fine. Now, coming to I just said that these are the various platforms. So as a researcher, as either faculty members or as a students, sometimes it's always confusing us that from where we should start this journey. So my suggestion would be that if you are dealing any kind of deep learning networks and so on and so forth, so you can think of to deal either on the CPU or GPU at the software level, right? Where you can train your network, right? You can do the coding, either the Python or any other language. It's up to your choice. And then for the particular data sets, and then finally you can have the runtime detection and classification of the things. So that is the easiest way to start the journey. And from here, you can find out the trained weight and something like that. Now, once you are okay with available hardware and software things, then you can think of to go with the FPGA, where the trained weights we can have, which you can achieve from your GPUs and CPUs. And then you can think of initially with the FPGA, right? You can design your network either VHDL, C or C++ language, learning everything on the CPU, GPUs, and using this various software. And finally, you can implement on the FPGA, right? And you can have seen the inference. And if you are finally okay with FPGA, then you can think of to convert that FPGA ASICs into ASICs, right? The particular design blocks, okay? Then finally, you can send your design. So this will be the kind of flow, design flow for the deep learning networks on the software and the hardware, and finally convert into the final chip. Okay, so the same thing is being explained over here. The training part you can do on the CPUs or GPU, and the train weight you can calculate, which you can extract from the network, and then finally load the train weight, and finally if you try to implement on the FPGA, and finally you can have the runtime inference, real-time inference, you can obtain it. Now, as a digital design, it's sometimes interesting that how to start with. So architecture, we have to think which architecture you are considering, how many number of layers, what is the data precision. I mean, you are dealing with the 4-bit, 8-bit, 16-bit, or 12-bit, or 32-bit. So these things you have to discuss in the very beginning. Then your design hierarchy on the memory, what kind of memory you are thinking of, right? And what kind of processing element PE and MAC used to be there. So multiplier, accumulate unit, right? So where we have to think upon, if you are thinking to design and develop first MAC or processing unit, so whether they are area efficient and power efficient, or what exactly, we have to think on the computer side. So altogether, you can start the journey, and one can analyze the things. This slide shows the hardware implementation and validation of the co-design. So as I said that initially you can think of any network. For example, here in this case, we have chosen the MNST data sets, right, where 10,000 samples are there. We have started designing and developing and finding out the trend weights. And then those trend weights you can design on the Vivado software, which is one of the Xilinx tool, right? And finally, you can implement on the Jaiba board, which is one of the system on chip board, which is not more than 12,000 rupees costlier. So here if you see here, this is the ASIC. Okay, this is the complete FPGA board, right, where you can interface the input images through various interface blocks, and you can do everything. So you can start the journey where, but the only is that the hardware blocks which are there inside these tiny chips, right, we have to analyze, we have to optimize your algorithm in such a way that even larger neural networks can be efficiently, embedded in these small tiny chips. So that is our art. So I'm not sure that how many people may have learned about the digital side and log side, particularly this VLSI background. But nonetheless, you try to understand that if you try to design any digital design, then you have to have the theoretical design, we have to have the VHDL description, and then finally you can fabricate the chips at various level. If design is failed, verification is failed, then you have to go back once again and you have to describe your network and finally convert into the circuit level, which is ready for the manufacturing. So this is the flow of the VHDL or Verilog, simply you understand, and then you can implement any kind of digital design network. And if you try to understand some of the neural networks block with the analog approach, so this is the schematic level approach. And then if you have to go for the post layout simulation, I mean the silicon level, and if you're not satisfied and if simulation is failed, then you have to go back and check once again your circuit simulation, and finally. And one by one step, you have to follow the design rule check, LVS, layout versus schematic, then parasitic extraction, simulation, and finally you can send your circuit design for the tape out for the fabrication. At every level of abstraction, you have to see whether your design is properly checked or not. If failed, then you have to go back once again and try to tube this design, and then finally you can convert. Okay, so this is how one can follow these steps of the analog design approach. Now, as I said in the beginning that probably we will learn ASIC design flow. So ASIC design flow means whatever product we want to design, for example, memory, right? So all its specification one has to have from the very beginning. For example, the power supply, the power consumption, and what exactly that, right? So all those stuff we have to learn from the very beginning. And then you have to also decide the architecture, on which architecture you want to, the logic design, and then physical design. Physical design means at the silicon level looks like this. So this is the ASIC chip, right? This is the 40-pin IC, where these are the legs of the IC, and these are the wire bonds which are connected from the actual chips to the outside. So this is a ceramic package, for example, and these are the actual logic which you have implemented. So I mean, there's a large number of circuit blocks which are needed between the actual logic block and pins, outside pins, which we see with your naked eyes. So these are the things one can have a look. So Manish, can you take a break up to 3 minutes?
Sure, sir. Sure.
So let us take 2-3 minutes break and then we will come back. Okay.
ये 5 मिनट का ब्रेक है क्या मनीष?
Yes, sir. वो हमने ब्रेक लिया है 2 दिन.
अच्छा, हाँ, ठीक.
I request all the participants, please don't leave the meeting. Sir is starting lecture within 1 or 2 minutes.
विकास सर नमस्ते. मुबारक सर
नमस्कार
नमस्ते.
नमस्कार सर. अरे इट्स वेरी प्लेजर टू लिसन टू यू. बहुत बढ़िया लेक्चर चल रहा है.
Thank you sir. Thank you so for blessing.
And because of COVID, we are not able to meet each other for a long time.
That is also one strength.
Yeah, but very interesting lecture. I must congratulate you. है ना?
Thank you sir. Thank you.
चलिए सर. Okay, it's pleasure to listen to you after a long time and see you also online.
Same here.
Okay,
So
चलिए
shall we
सर.
start Manoj ji once again?
Yes, sir. Please continue.
So. So as of now, we have learned probably that how one can design the hardwares, right? Particularly the ASICs. So particularly if you are dealing any kind of edge computing. So before that, we have learned the digital design approach and what are the analog design approach. And finally, if someone has a wish to design the ASICs, then what are the various steps and how one can complete the design.
Sir, your screen is not visible, sir.
Screen is not visible? Okay. Sorry. Okay. Now I hope it should be visible.
Yes, sir, it's visible now.
Thank you. So what I was explaining that as of now, we have learned the various design platforms and how one can design, keeping the beauty of the various neural networks and so on and so forth. Okay. So since we are dealing the various CNN networks, right? So I mean, fundamentally, one should know that how CNN networks works and what are the various convolutional platforms and so on, so how pooling can be done and so on and so forth. So these things are very important, and for the communication persons, I mean, I'm sure that many of you must be knowing that how one can do this pooling and so on and so forth, so that you can achieve the real image which you are supposed to expect. But coming once again the hardware perspective, because probably in this lecture we are trying to design the hardwares for these networks. So the first and fundamental blocks used to be the activation function. So in the literature you will find various classes of the activation function: tan, hyperbolic, sigmoid, Rayleigh, and so on and so forth. So before proceeding to any activation function, right, these are the algorithms which can be utilized using the hardware implementation of these activation function. So when I'm saying hardware implementation or realization of any kind of network on an R plan, so we have to follow any kind of VSDL or Verilog language. And there also you can compare the area of the proposed MAC activation function, the leakage and delay, energy delay product, and area delay product. Right. So these are the very simple process, but as a beginner, sometimes we find difficulty then how to proceed. So it's very simple that you need to understand the activation function algebraic expression of that, and then finally using VSDL Verilog you can proceed, and finally you can implement using Vivado software and this implementation report, and finally you can turns out its area, delay, and whatever important building blocks are there. So for example, the lookup table, and so on, so Cordic based approach and so on and so forth. So these are the very systematic approach which the tool itself will give you all that information. So one has to worry, for example, here the Swiss function, Rayleigh function, and so how the mathematical expression, and those mathematical expression you can design into digital logics. Okay. So moving forward, I mean, it's very important to analyze experimentally and validate the things. So what we have performed in many of our further experiments, we have taken the MNIST data sets, maybe 10,000 samples and Cypher 10, and we have also taken the linear architecture and its benchmark analysis. So out of these two architectures, we have analyzed things and we have computed finally. And finally, we have now coming to the other block, which is very important from the hardware perspective, that is the MAC block, right? So where the multiplier is the one block, then addition is another block. Okay, so if you see in the literature, you will find various multiplier blocks, and multiplication design and development per multiplier will take another complex system. So it is the one of the most hungry block in the neural networks. So in Atharva Vedana, I mean, there are various ways in Madhik multiplier, exact multiplier, pipeline multiplier. There are multiple Booth multipliers and so on and so forth, right? But but in nutshell, what I'm trying to explain is that whatever multiplier you consider, right? There we have to analyze the lookup table and IO blocks and the area, energy, everything of your proposed architecture. Okay, and there also we have to do either 8-bit precision or 12-bit or 16-bit or even 4-bit. So in the further results, what we have done that we have analyzed almost all the analysis and implemented on these JIBO boards, hardware boards, right? All possible ways of multiplier. Okay, and then these are the other ways to implement the various logic blocks using these MAC units, like MAC, ORing, ANDing, NORing, because these are the expression which we have to perform, right? So this is how one can implement finally. And then moving forward, actually, I mean, these are the various classes which one can do by your own. Okay. Then this is the special class of the MAC, which one of our master students implemented recently, and he has published this paper where we have used the power getting techniques. Because I just said that the power, this MAC unit, this is one of the most power hungry aspect. So what we have come out, we have turns out various digital blocks. Whichever block is needed, we give the power, and which blocks are not needed, don't give the power. So that is called the power reduction techniques, are called the power getting techniques. So we have analyzed this MAC unit on 40 nanometer technology node and 45 nanometer technology node with non-power getting technique and with power getting technique. So we have analyzed the area, power, delay, and critical analysis and so forth. And it turns out that the non-power get bit cell, MAC unit cell, is performing better. Okay, the stand power and so on and so forth. So these analysis has been done in this work, which I don't want to discuss right away. And these are the process, these are the methods, design description of that. Then we have to write down the Verilog code, RTL synthesis, placement and routing, and finally you can implement the hardware on the FPGA. Okay, and these are once again the listed results at 2 different technology nodes, 180 nanometer and 45 nanometer technology node with power getting and without power getting techniques. But here is very interesting stuff. So the interesting stuff is that the training accuracy of the given networks. Okay, so if you see from 2-bit to 4-bit, 8-bit, 16-bit, 32-bit, that is the bit precision, as I said in the very beginning. And for all the linear architecture of CAFENet, so the turning point here is that 8-bit, if you try to, I mean, you can start analysis of 4-bit, no problem at all. The analysis will, but if you see the accuracy of any of the architecture, so 85, 97, 98.2, 98.7, and so on. So there is a drastic change in the accuracy till 8-bit, and after that, there is no change of accuracy. I mean, very less fraction of change. Right? So what we have analyzed in the coming slide also, that probably 8-bit is the bit precision value which gives the favorable accuracy for any of the network architecture. So this we have done on the software. Okay, and as a result, we have done lots of calculation. For example, compilation area for 8-bit, 12-bit, and 16-bit. And similarly for static power and dynamic power consumed by that logic networks, and so on and so forth. So what we have analyzed that in the further results, we have considered that let us take the 8-bit precision and its understanding in the further analysis. Okay. For example, this is the Lend architecture where we have performed and we have implemented the Zinc board. Okay. This is one of the ARM FPGA SoC, System on Chip Development Board, where we have analyzed and we have calculated the lookup table RAM, flip-flop, block RAM, IOs, and so on and so forth. Okay, at various, and then finally percentage utilization of the MAC using BitMAC. So BitMAC is 46% as compared to conventional MAC, and many parameters we have improved. So our proposed BitMAC cell is showing much better results as compared to the previously published BitMAC results. So, so one of my other scholars, he has also worked upon the Cordic architecture based on the activation function of 45-minute technology node. So there also the 8-bit combinational, 8-bit Cordic architecture, 12-bit and 12-bit Cordic, and 16-bit and 16-bit Cordic. So here also we have realized that if you're trying to move from 8-bit to 12-bit, unnecessary area is much bigger. And similarly, if you move from 12-bit to 16-bit, of course, much bigger because of the issues, right? So the idea is that let us follow the 8-bit only and don't deviate. So 8-bit precision we have considered with either rotation scaling, I propose without power techniques and with power techniques and so on and so forth at 45-nanometer technology node with all typical process corners. Okay, so this is the first contribution, right, where the MAC unit with the nonlinear activation function operation we have investigated that with two sigmoid function and tan hyperbolic function, right, with the mux, the select line mux, when at one time sigmoid will work, at one time tan hyperbolic will work, and this is the Cordic algorithms, right? So so this is a select line at which line sigmoid will work and at which line tan hyperbolic will work. So these are some hardware implementation of those philosophy, and it says very clearly that 8-bit precision gives the accurate result, okay, and more bit precision. And we have also seen the process voltage temperature variation of the hardware, so that your IC which you are thinking of to design, that should be robust, okay. Further, we have also analyzed that how one can think of a performance-centric pipeline design architecture. So, and then at the same time, we have also realized in the previous analysis that the throughput was also very low. So, how to improve the throughput and performance? So, the literature, when we analyzed and corrected many results, then it has been turns out that maximum 4 stages are required to get better accuracy result. Okay. So as a result, what we have done result has been not shown here, but we have taken the maximum 4 pipeline architecture. Okay. So like the example here is a 1-bit 1, which says stage number 1, stage number 2, and so on. So stage number n. So how many? So what we have realized and we have learned from experiments that the 4 to 5 stages are sufficient enough to improve the performance, at the same time to improve the throughput, okay, of the estimated networks. The last part I will take 2-3 minutes because I have to move somewhere else. So this is the edge accelerators, okay. So traditionally, I mean the conventional von Neumann architecture, as I said in the very beginning, that the processing units and memory unit on the CPU used to be different blocks. But it will take time, once you are supposed to compute something and process something. So what people have thought of that, let us have the processing unit and computing in the same block, and the memory also. So in the memory itself, computing used to be happen. Okay. So so these are the various important metrics which one has to think of while designing and developing this edge computing. For example, the accuracy, the throughput, latency, area and power, energy, hardware cost, and flexibility. So conventionally, people thought of to design the in-memory computing unit using 6-transistor SRAM cell, which is one of the fundamental blocks. This is the read and write operation of the memory blocks. But there are various other memory blocks, for example, SST RAM, resistive RAMs, PC RAM, 3D NAND flash RAM, and so on and so forth, right, with the capacity and access time. Okay. So as of course, SSRAM and DDRAM they are all the most favorite choice because the technology is very mature. Last more than 40-60 years, these technologies are mature enough and they are commercially also viable. So people thought of to design the in-memory computing using SRAM blocks. So these are the fundamental blocks of any memory, right? Where, for example, these are the cells having read word lines and write word lines, and then decoder, encoder, and then sense amplifier. So this is how one can design the memory block. But here I'm trying to explain that these are the read-write operation of any memory block. But this slide is very important. If somebody has to have the in-memory computing, which is power efficient and area efficient. So these blocks, 6-transistor SRAM cell, is being shown over here. Okay, and these are the sense amplifiers, and these are the other decoder and encoder blocks. And here we have the computational generator part, which used to give various row and columns. These are the row decoders and column decoders. And here we have the in-memory blocks. Okay, so this is the in-memory block called the in-MAC block. So depending upon these control signals, right, sometimes it can compute and sometimes it can store information or retrieve the information. So these kind of complete in-memory blocks can be utilized for the edge accelerators. For example, this key feature of the proposed techniques is a reconfigurability, standard logic operation, right? And many good features are there. And this was designed at 6-transistor SRAM cell, where you can think of to perform the operation of binary to gray, gray to binary, 2's complements, and full adder, and so on and so forth. But later we realized when we investigated further that using 6-transistor in-memory computing block, we may not able to perform many other desirable functions, right? So we thought of, can we think of other memory blocks? So we have proposed a 10-transistor SRAM cell. With the help of that proposed SRAM cell, which is the decoupled read-write feature, I mean there are no chances to have the node disturbance. Then it's also a feature of feature of many other additional operations can be performed, right? And then I'm sorry, I'm not able to show many other data because of some restrictions. That is what Manish told me. But in this particular design that we have proposed on 10-transistor SRAM cell is very efficient, area efficient, power efficient, and of course, in many sense, multiple number of operations we can perform. So this is also one of the important block for any of the edge AI computings. And these are my details. Professor Manish may have almost all my details. In case anyone needs, you can note down. Otherwise, you can take care. You can take from Professor Manish. So this is done from my side. Manish, over to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Participant side, any questions? Please, you can ask the questions from sir. Any question from the participant side? Sir, I have the one question that you have talked about the cloud AI computing, but this cloud will give some latency. So how much latency can be tolerable?
So actually, the cloud computing is also one of the solution. It's of course very good solution, but there are various applications, particularly IoT and then powered devices, where sometimes latency is very important. Strategic application, for example, autonomous car. So you cannot wait for longer period, then you can take the decision. For example, where the car is supposed to take the brake, where engine is supposed to take the action, for example, right? So there, the computing unit should be in the near of the decision elements itself. So there are various strategic applications where computing and sensing and decision making capability should be on the same platform. So of course, it's like fraction of seconds. Like in cloud also, it's not more than milliseconds, right? But now people are trying to reduce the latency time as small as possible, maybe in microseconds. So it's like cloud, maybe milliseconds. In here is microseconds or something like that. That is the latency time.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Any other question from the participants?
So if no further question, then I would like to leave. I have some other commitments.
Shruchi, madam?
And already I have shared the presentation to you, Manish. So,
Yeah, okay. Okay, yes, sir. I got the prior presentation.
thank you.
Yes, sir. Sir, am I audible?
Deepali.
Yes, sir. Sir, I just want to thank you for your precious time and your guidance. Sir, it was a wonderful session. We learned so much from this. Starting with the AI chip market and related technology, we learned edge AI computing and its importance. Also, hardware software co-design for edge AI application. And deep learning networks, the difference in CPU, GPC, ASCIIs and FPGA and their research scope. Sir has also explained FPGA boards and its related parameters and its advantages and drawbacks, accelerators, DNN accelerators, neural network. We have learned MAC implementation, bit cell, power gating, LANET architecture, edge accelerator and related aspects. Sir, we have learned so much from you. Thank you so much, sir, for your guidance. Hope we get to learn from you in future also. Thank you so much from this department.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Manish and the entire department and GSITS Indore.
और ऋषभ साहब कैसे चल रहा है?
Fine, sir. All good, all well.
अच्छा, वो आपके यहाँ पे त्रिवेदी ने ज्वाइन किया है ना, वसु त्रिवेदी ने। तो उसके बाद से किताब है बेल लैब्स की, आइडिया फैक्ट्री करके।
अच्छा अच्छा अच्छा।
कभी टाइम मिला तो पढ़िए, उससे लेके थोड़ा बहुत।
हाँ हाँ हाँ, एकदम एकदम।